I'm Andrew Braddock and I'm the Dean of Norwich Cathedral. When the cathedral was founded over 900 years ago, it was founded both as a cathedral, the seat of the Bishop of Norwich, and as a Benedictine monastic community. And the rule of life that they followed, especially the central principles of being a community of worship, of learning and hospitality, was something which went on and survived across the divide of the Reformation. When the monastic part of the cathedral was dissolved in 1538, those principles of learning, worship and hospitality were taken up in new ways by the cathedral community that carried on, and they're still very much at the heart of what we do today as a cathedral. So we have 4 services every day. Worship is the heartbeat of what we do. We're a community committed to learning, both for children and for adults. Most years we'll welcome, for example, over 7,000 children here as part of our education programme. And of course, hospitality continues to be a really key part of what the cathedral does. We welcome over 650,000 visitors a year. So there's a long tradition in this place, both as a monastery and then simply as a cathedral, where we've pursued those 3 key aims which are rooted in the Rule of St Benedict. As a Christian, obviously, I find meaning in my life through following the way of Christ, following the Christian faith. And I think what the exhibition does in a brilliant way is bring that ancient faith into conversation with contemporary issues, the questions that all of us face simply as human beings living at this moment in history. And that wonderful juxtaposition between the ancient wisdom that we find, particularly in the Christian faith, but how do we apply that into our contemporary situation? And I think the exhibition is a really inspiring way of getting us to think about that interaction, that conversation and dialogue between faith and contemporary lives and society. One of the important things for us as a cathedral is to see that Benedictine rule of life isn't just a historic artifact from the past, something which only relates to our history. For us, it's a document that continues to inform our life today. So, for example, every day at our service of evensong or evening prayer, we have read a portion of the rule in the same way that the monks would have heard a little chapter or section of the rule being read for the very practical wisdom it gives for living together in community. We talk in the values that we seek to aspire to as a cathedral community of some of those values which you can trace back to the Benedictine way of life. For example, the importance of compassion, the importance of living a life which is in harmony with nature and one another, and you can trace that right back to the Rule of St Benedict. So for us it's important, I think, to say that the Rule of St Benedict is a living document, something that continues to inspire and shape the life of the cathedral now. It is a fabulous show. It's a wonderful juxtaposition of historic treasures and the contemporary response to that whole theme of a rule of life. I think the particular object that stood out for me, though, was that wonderful 7th century copy of the Rule of St Benedict. I think it's come from the Bodleian Library in Oxford, which takes us really to the heart of the exhibition, because that is the rule of life, the guidance that monastic communities would have lived by, that followed the Rule of Benedict. And when you look at that manuscript, it's still wonderfully fresh. The quality of the writing and so on, the script work is just fantastic. So that's the one that lives in my memory because it's still so vivid, even though it's such an old document. Well, we're very fortunate here at Norwich that we have this beautiful cloister. We're standing in the middle of the cloister in what we call the cloister garth. It's the largest monastic cloister in England. It was built across 150 years. So as you look around the cloister, you can see this wonderful example of Gothic architecture, Gothic tracery in the archways. And it was very much at the centre of the life of the monastery. It connected the different parts of the monastery together, the church for prayer, the refectory for eating together, the chapter where the community met for governance, the hostelry where they met to welcome guests, and that still is the function it performs today. But the cloister was always far more than simply a connecting space. It was a place for relaxation. Just in one of the corners still of the cloister, we have a wonderful stone bench which runs along the edge of the cloister, and scratched into it is a medieval game called Nine Men's Morris. So you can imagine some monks in a bit of a time of relaxation playing that game together. It was also a place for reflection, for meditation. The wonderful thing about the cloister is it has over 350 roof bosses, many of which tell stories from the Bible, and so those would have helped the monks as they meditated on those biblical stories and what their meaning was for them. So a place of reflection, of meditation, but also a place of study. Around the different walks of the cloister, you will see the remains of the old book cupboards, where books were stored and then given out to the monks, particularly perhaps to read during Lent as part of their observance of that important season. So a place of study. And then we also think that in the north walk of the cloister, there would have been desks at which monks copied out manuscripts, did script work, producing beautiful manuscripts as part of their devotion and as part of the work of the monastery. So it had these multiple purposes and was very much the heart of the monastic life here. There are so many things that I'd love to see the Sainsbury Centre asking, why beauty? Why do we have a sense of beauty? Or where does our sense of moral consciousness come from? But the one I've plumped for, which is perhaps a deceptively simple question, is why love? Why is it we have a capacity to love with all the joy and the pain that love can bring? What's the use of it? Why is it so important to who we are as human beings? So why love would be my question for the Sainsbury Centre's next blockbusting exhibition.